Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is a kitchen time you do not see very often. This is Roger repotting a Phalaenopsis. Bearing in mind I haven't got many, it obviously doesn't come around that often. The 3 Phalaenopsis in the growing in the house project have now been extended by this one, so there are now 4. And with the other 3, one of the first things we did was get them out of their pot, what's in my pot, and then get them potted up in a media that I like rather than what they were in. So that's all I'm doing, is following the routine. Now what we've either got here is a basal growth or a separate plant. Now the fact that it's a much smaller version, it's probably a basal growth, in which case it can stay there. If it's attached, it can stay. If it's a separate plant, I'll put it in a separate pot. And possibly that can go to somebody else down the line. The trouble is, if it's a separate plant, you've got no absolute guarantee that it's the same variety of Phalaenopsis. Automated processes in the main, you know, so things could get muddled up. It's possible. Anyway, I gave this a trickle of water yesterday because the roots had gone back to silver, but now they've gone green again. But you probably won't. Oh, hang on! I need to get I put the camera up high so that you can see the blooms. Now let's get it back down where it needs to be to work on it, somewhere about there. And yes, it is in bloom. Don't care. I've repotted enough plants in bloom not to worry about them now. Anyway, what I was saying is that I put a trickle of water around the edge of the pot, and that's greened up the roots. That will have softened them as well. But if you look at the media, I didn't get much on the media. The media should be still relatively dry. It could be soaking wet in the middle though, that I don't know. But it looks like a very good root system. The fact that there's live moss on the top, and it came from Burnham's, I've got a horrible feeling, well, it's not a horrible feeling, but I got a feeling that they bought this in a while back, in bloom, to sell, and it didn't sell for whatever reason, because it's a beauty, and so they put it out in the nursery and it's bloomed again. Because normally when you buy the mass-produced plants, they haven't been in the pot long enough to grow moss on the top. So moss on the top is a sign that it's been in the pot a while. So it's another good reason for getting it out, really. Now we do have a problem. We do have 2 stakes. They may stay with the plant, they may not. But what they will do is aid me getting it out of the pot, because I'm just grabbing a handful. See, now that's come out as a solid lump. And it's that peaty material, but a lot of the roots, some of these down here are rotten, so it's obviously been standing in water for a while, so the lower roots have rotted. I'm not worried about that, there's plenty of good ones, so hopefully we should be okay. But then the first thing to do is just tease this apart and see what happens. It's highly unlikely there will be live roots in the middle of this, but you never know. You never know. Don't knock it till you try it. I still say there's nothing wrong with this media. If you can control the watering and you've got a relatively dry environment, this is an excellent media. It's effectively cocoa peat. And it holds a lot of moisture, a hell of a lot of moisture. So if you're working in a dry environment and you don't get the chance to water your plants too often, this would be perfect. If you're a bit of a fiddler, one of those that likes to fiddle with your orchids every day and, well, just give them a trickle of water, they haven't had any for an hour, give them a bit more. If you're one of those, then don't use this media, because you'll drown your roots. Like I was saying in the Sunday video talking about media, one of the important elements for your roots is oxygen, which they get from the air. Yeah? Well, to get it, they have to have the air, don't they? And that air needs to change every now and again. I didn't bring my scissors out, it's a bit silly when I'm doing roots. But at the moment, I'm not seeing a lot that I would want to cut off, I must admit. What I'm seeing is a pretty good root system. some of which has gone down the middle. You notice that's how you can tell how dense this media is. Look at the colour of the roots that are in it. They're pure white. They don't see any light whatsoever. Nothing. Daylight doesn't get anywhere near them. Now hopefully they will colour up and still be successful roots. They might object. They might not. Do you know, there's not enough in here to warrant going and getting the scissors, I don't think. There's just not enough that's gone. There's only a couple. But I want to get this stuff away from the base of the plant. That's the place where rot can set in if it stays soggy and the temperatures drop down. Now the fact that this is going to be grown in the house, the temperatures shouldn't drop down. So we should be okay either way, but I would rather it was gone. Get it all off. There we go. Now the fact that we've got some damage on some of these roots, they really aren't bad, are they? Not bad at all. Yeah, I think I'm just going to pot that up and not worry about it. The stakes can stay on for now, but what I am going to do is spray the whole lot with hydrogen peroxide, and there's a reason for that. If you look at the base of that stake, there's a white film on the stake. Well, that's mould. Yeah. Now the spores are therefore around the base of the plant, so we'll give it a good spray. And we still haven't determined whether we've got a basal shoot or a separate plant. It's difficult to tell. Well, it was a basal plant connected by the tiniest little connection with no roots. Yeah? But as this is an incredibly attractive Phalaenopsis, many said so when I first got it, what we will do with that piece is we'll stand it in some moss in a small pot and see if it will grow some roots. It looks a bit, there are root nubbins. I doubt if you'll be able to see, they're so tiny, but these are root nubbins just here, the end of my finger. So it could sprout relatively quickly. Now at the moment this is floppy, this is a bit flimsy, so it's not hydrating, which, you know, is reasonable, that it ain't going to get much through that little tiny little piece, is it? So I think again, with that amount of cocoa peat around the base of the plant, this was attached but not in a good enough way to actually make it thrive. So the amount of energy that would have been draining from the mother plant is next to zero, so it wouldn't have been weakening the mother plant. Yep, they're all going to stay. I'm just looking for things like this that are broken. I can just nip them off with my nail. So anything that wobbles, basically. The one there is actually detached, I think. Is it detached? It's difficult to tell, but it's broken there, so if we take it off at the break point, and then it will probably unthread itself. Ah, there we go. Right, so I think we'll generally leave that lot. So we're going to have to, you know, we're going to have to go in a reasonable sized pot this time round. Otherwise, we're not going to get all these roots in, and they will take a bit of threading round to actually get them in there. Could it go back in the same pot? Yes, it could. Why waste one of mine when I've got a free one? Anyway, I will just get rid of this peat. This is not old stuff. It's relatively fresh. So this was not an emergency repot by any means. It was just I want it in my media. So that the problem is, if you've got a little group of orchids and they're in different media, technically they're going to need watering at different times. That creates work because you've got to keep your eye on them more often. Yeah. Whereas if I've got them all in the same media, or roughly the same media, they'll all get watered together. Now, okay, some might get a bit dry before that happens, but not by much, and some might not have dried off perhaps as much as the others. But to me, it works better if I've got a group like this, all with the same media. You got one of these yet? Come on. I was just thinking, what's the date today? Where's my calendar? It's the 6th today. If you order one of them mugs today, you get 10% discount using the discount code SUNSET, I believe. Where did I put that? I think I put it on the Sunday video or somewhere anyway. I've told people about the discount. But it's SUNSET, and the code I was given was in capital letters. That could be important. So when you get to the checkout bit, somewhere there should be, have you got a code or something like that, and you put in SUNSET and you get 10% off. I was just thinking, it's from the company, that discount, not from me. So what the company are doing is cutting down their profits. My profits stay the same, but I bet that 10% doesn't come off the shipping. I bet that's still at full price. Still, it's a gift from the company and it runs out tomorrow on the 7th. So if you want a mug, now's the time to get one. Right, okay, we'll have the hydrogen peroxide spray, get that done, and then we'll be back, get some media sorted out. Won't be anything special, it'll be large bark and something. But one good thing, it is actually just starting a new leaf. I don't believe that was there when I bought it, so that's come since then. So I'll be back. Right, I'm back. I've zoomed in a bit because some people have had a moan that they can't see really what's going on. I know often my hands are in the way, but I've come in a bit closer. That means there's quite a bit that you won't see. You know, there'll be times when the plant's off the top of the screen and things like that, especially this time, it's a big plant. But it's the bit in the pot that's what we're doing now anyway. And you can tell I wasn't long in the break because the coffee's still on the go. It is getting cold though. Not anymore. Right, we have a pot full of, this is live sphagnum moss that I collected. Well, actually I didn't collect it, I bought it at a garden centre a long time ago. And I just keep a tray full going. It's got a huge fern growing in it at the moment. And it lives in front of the inlet fan, so it gives off moisture as the fresh air comes in. Trouble is, it doesn't have to dry it out quick. Now, the base of that's had a spray with hydrogen peroxide, again in case there's any mould spores or anything like that. And the whole plant's had a good wash. Hopefully some of that moisture will get in there. But all I'm going to do is gently push that into that moss, not deep. There, that's it. So it's just sat. The bottom two leaves are just about touching the moss, and that base is just sat in it. There's no pressing down, that's about as light and fluffy as I can get it. And I'm going to try watering it by standing it in water so that it soaks up, because if I pour water in it, it'll start to compact that type of moss. So that's that one done. That was easy. I've given that a bit of a wash. There was some algae around the top, so that's gone. And this is going to be mostly large bark. Actually, I'll break off. I do actually want some medium bark as well, and I forgot. I'll go and get some. Right, I'll explain why I wanted some of that. This large chunky bark is what it says. Now, when you put that in a pot and your roots are in it, how much bark does the root actually touch? And it's not a lot. Now, okay, a lot of plants like a lot of air around their roots, but that's pushing it a bit. Bearing in mind this will not hydrate very well at all. You put this in a pot, pour a litre of water through, you're likely to get virtually a litre out the bottom, so it doesn't hold water for some time, you know, a couple of months before it starts retaining some moisture. So by adding some medium bark in, I actually fill in some of the gaps. I don't want all the gaps gone, I just want the roots to have something to touch in more places than they would have had with just the large bark. So we'll crop the bottom of the pot. The main reason for doing that is to keep the air cone clear. There's no point in having an air cone if all the holes are bunged up. The idea is to let air in, not block it up with media. So good chunky bark in the bottom. And we've got some of our medium bark. That doesn't look like a lot, but there's more. In here is not coffee. It's actually some large chunks of cocoa husk that have been in soak, and that's going in. So that will help hold moisture in some places, not the whole pot. So where that cocoa husk is and a root is touching it, or a couple of roots, they get extra moisture for longer than just the bark. Now you can see where I'm going with this, yeah? And then I'm going to chuck some charcoal in. I've got it, I'm going to use it. It's going to, because it's small charcoal, it's not, I doubt it's going to do a lot of good. It's not even going to come out at the moment. Come on! I'm only going to add a little bit. It's a token gesture. With the media that I'm using here, the chances of it ever going off before this plant gets repotted is virtually zero. Right, we'll get a bit of media in the bottom there. Now, what I've done with the plant, let's just clean my hands off. What I've done with the plant is the two stakes were in quite, I won't say tight, but quite tight clips. So what I've done is I've pushed them up through those clips, so they're now probably around where the base of the plant will be when we get it in the pot. So I'm not potting the stakes, I'm hoping to be able to push them down in once we get the plant in the pot. Yeah, you can see they're up here now. I push them up through the, like that, just push them up. So they're away from the base of the plant. They can still go up quite a bit. So they're out of the way, and I don't like the way that's dangling. It's got to be broken, hasn't it? Yes, it is. When they wobble like that, they can't be much good, can they? Right, there we go then. Now, gently and twist. Actually, that needs to twist the other way. It's telling me that it doesn't want to go that way, it wants to go the other way. Things were catching and getting jammed up. Right, we're about there. On the base of the plant, near the top of the pot, where we can get as much media in amongst these roots as possible. Now these are not fragile roots, but you work them too hard, you will break them. So I'm trying not to get too many huge gaps, but I don't mind some. It's a Phalaenopsis. As far as I'm concerned, roots on a Phalaenopsis can be treated the same as Cattleya roots. Yeah? Plenty of air, a few gaps in the pot, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. They won't mind. If you've got a Phalaenopsis with quite chunky media in the pot and it's grown some new roots since you potted it, have a look and see where the roots go. Because 9 times out of 10 they head for the gaps. They don't burrow into where the media is nice and tight, they head for the gaps. So they obviously like the gaps. Now this is going to look odd when this is finished because some of these white roots are showing, the ones that were buried in the media that never saw the light of day. Now they may change colour, they may object, we don't know yet. So now I'm just going to push a few down, make sure we're reasonably tight. So I've just found a nice gap there, seeing my finger just sunk in practically to the bottom of the pot. There was obviously a gap there, wasn't there? Right, so now the only thing I'm going to do now is this lowest leaf has got to come off. Because it was buried, it will only rot. So that's that one done. Just get some smaller stuff to go in that gap there. And we're nearly done now. Nearly done. Just working some larger pieces down the sides there. Another quite big gap there, but not too bad. This is quite a large area of air space down there. It's not the end of the world. Don't worry about it with this type of plant. If it was a Masdevallia, that would be a daft thing to leave an air pocket like that, because their roots do need to touch. But with Phalaenopsis, it's not quite so important. Right, let's move round then. Big gap there. Is that the only one? Because if it is the only one, it can stay and I won't worry about it. So I think that's it. Reasonably tight. Reasonably tight. Yep. Now I'm going to try pushing those stakes down. They're not to hold the plant, they're to hold the flower spikes. But the weight of the flower spikes could tip the plant enough to actually pull it out of the pot. So I wanted these to at least grab hold of something. And then that stops it being quite so wobbly in the pot. So there we go. That's it. Base of the plant where new roots will come out is not buried. Let's just get you up there. That's what the base of the plant looks like. Under those two roots is where it fizzles out. Yeah, so it's the base of the actual plant is just sitting on the top of the media, which is the place that will dry the fastest. So it's not going to be sitting in soggy media. Not that this media is going to stay soggy, that's for sure. So again, the plant had a good wash. Clean all the leaves off while I've got it under the tap doing the roots and washing the hydrogen peroxide off. Some people say don't bother, it turns to water. Yeah, well, it does eventually. But if it doesn't find much to get hold of and fizz with, it can remain active for some considerable time. And in theory, could burn delicate roots. Why take the chance? And the other thing I'm going to do, I shouldn't need to do this, but as that is a brand new leaf down there, I'm just going to get that water off of it. Now if that was an inch long, that leaf, I wouldn't do that, but the fact that that is so small and delicate and fragile, we'll just get the water off of it. There we go. So plant and blooms intact. Some people say you should never repot when something's in bloom. I've never found it a problem. I did a Phalaenopsis once where it was a branching flower spike and it still had quite a lot of buds on it, and quite a few of those buds blasted. Yeah, so a word of warning, if it's in full bloom I've never had a problem. Yeah, but with smaller buds that are still expanding, they can blast. The disturbance on the roots is just too much for the plant. If it's a big strong plant bursting with health and everything, it's still unlikely to have an effect. But, right, I'm happy with that, and that now goes in the lounge with the other large Phalaenopsis to hopefully do okay. Now I doubt if there'll be much signs of new roots in that pot for some time. That doesn't matter. It's still got a working root system. New roots will follow. They may be roots that branch, and they may be roots like that I completely missed. Missed one. The other one's not like that. No, that's it's just that one. And now I've exposed one of those white roots. We'll put a little bit of media on top of that white root to make it feel comfortable, because otherwise it's going to want its sunglasses on. Sudden introduction to bright light like that. There we go. Right, so that's it. That now goes in the lounge with the others and gets added to that set, which is the I don't know what we called it, shop bought Phalaenopsis, I think it was. What I'll do is at the end of this video I'll link the playlist for all of the ones that I've been growing in the home. From you've got videos from when I brought them home and we had a look at them, and then as I said, we got them out their pots and had a look at the roots, potted them up. I believe they've even been repotted since then, I'm not sure. But anyway, there's a whole set of videos, the life of those orchids from the time they arrived here at home to now. Well, to close to now. I haven't actually done an update for a while. Maybe I ought to. We shall see. But yeah, there's a playlist on the end of this video, which should be popping up any minute now. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.